Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Your Voice Talk Show. My name is Sonia Graham, and I'm, of course, the host. I am the author of It's Time to Uncover Your Original Blueprint. And you can find my book at barnesandnoble.com, target.com, of course, amazon.com, and walmart.com. So please pick it up. The book gives you 10 steps to uncover the real you and your real purpose. I want to thank you guys for taking the time to tune in on a Sunday afternoon. You could be doing anything and be anywhere else. So I really appreciate you guys stopping by and being a part of this interactive platform. Today's show is a very important issue. People say holiday blues. What does that really mean? And it just was on my heart to let's have a real conversation to get a better understanding where that came from, where the term came from, and what it actually means. So today I'm blessed to have an amazing panel to discuss holiday blues. So I want to start by going ahead and introducing our panel so we can get into the show. And as everybody knows, this is an interactive platform, which means throughout the show, please type in comments or send a text, and we'll have the number posted on the screen throughout the broadcast. This platform is available also on YouTube. So if you know people that are not on social media, please let them know they can find it also at Your Voice Talk Show, all together, no space, and they can also tune in and enjoy the show as well. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and introduce our amazing panel. So first, I'd like to introduce Dr. Michelle Wishire, excuse me. She's a licensed clinical psychologist in Florida and in New York City with a strong interest in adult individual therapy and couples therapy. She sees clients through a holistic lens and utilizes a integrative approach to include cognitive behavioral therapy, uh, solutional focus therapy, all of these words, relational therapy, and then she's through motivational interviewing and mindfulness practices. Dr. Wilshire encourages clients to trust the process and promotes life sustainability through addressing emotional and mental health balance. She believes that finding stability in life can be achieved through developing personal insight, strengthening interpersonal relationships, and discovering the coping mechanisms that work best for each individual. I am so sorry I chopped through all of those. It's a lot, and I'm so happy you're here. And I'm sure you'll give us some clearance and clarify some of the things I may have messed up. Welcome to Your Voice Talk Show.
Happy to
Can
be
you hear
here.
me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Wonderful,
Okay,
wonderful.
great. Very happy to be here. Thank you for the wonderful introduction.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Victoria Graham. Victoria is a master's level counseling intern and originally from Houston. She has been living in Miami, Florida for the past 8 years. She is in her second year master's in mental health counseling program at the University of Miami. She hopes to use what she's learned to help guide more people in the Black community to prioritize and understand how to improve and manage their mental health. Victoria is also the host for Acoustic Appetite, an Instagram platform which advocates mental health awareness through open conversations, music, and art. Welcome to the show, Victoria Graham.
Sorry, I was muted. Technology, thank you.
Welcome to the show, Victoria. And a bonus, Victoria is my daughter. So I got to embarrass you there. The next guest I would like to invite to the platform is Chara Bowie, MALPCS. She's a licensed professional counselor supervisor. She has over 20 years of experience in mental health as a licensed professional counselor supervisor and a registered play therapist supervisor. She has a deep understanding of correlation between physical health and mental health. She's a published author and a member of various community boards and councils. She joined Harris County Precinct 2 over 14 years ago. She has a multitude of experience in community programs that engage youth, seniors, and veterans. Currently, she's the Director of Health Services of Harris County Precinct 2, and says our goal is to improve the health outcomes of constituents in Precinct 2 by improving healthcare access, decreasing health disparities, thus leading the increased health equity. She's a native of Kansas City, Missouri, and a graduate of Louisiana Tech University. She holds a bachelor's degree in sociology, a master's degree in counseling and guidance, and she's currently a doctoral student at Houston Baptist University. Houston has become her home to her and her family for the last 20 years, and she's a proud parent that believes in instilling a strong spirit of community service in her children. You will often find us working together as a family to serve our community. And as a matter of fact, Tara, we were downtown today handing out pillows and blankets to the homeless. So thank you for helping us do that, and welcome to Your Voice Talk Show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
The next panel I'd like to introduce is Bobby Wagner. She's the founder of the Pink Canopy Foundation, which promotes mental health awareness. She's a director, writer, and videographer. Her latest project and documentary film entitled The Pink Canopy, which reveals the life story of an African-American educator in Iowa and her battle with mental illness. Bobby is passionate about telling her mother's story by sharing the film in churches, mental health agencies, and other venues. She continues to create awareness of mental illness. Ms. Wagner received her Bachelor's of Mass Communications and has worked in television and film industry for 30 years. She has her own company called Of Sound and Mind Enterprises. Her current project releases this summer, or summer 2021. Her entitled book, Life Under the Pink Canopy, which is a memoir of her experiences living with a parent having mental illness, addressing and unaddressed traumas that mother's illness left behind. So again, thank you. Ms. Bobby.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. All right, do we have everybody seen on our screen there? Can we see everybody? Okay. All right, so to start the show off today, I mentioned to the panel, this is just a casual conversation, like if we're sitting in our living room. And so the first question I would like to ask Dr. Wilshire is, what is holiday blues?
Holiday blues. So I know that's like the easy term for it. It's a familiar term, and it's experienced in so many ways. So a little bit about holiday blues, and I think we've all felt it. You know, it's part of the human experience is lower energy, sadness, and some people term it depression. And it usually happens anywhere from like October on, or whenever there's whenever the sun is setting earlier, you know, and it's darker, longer. That's one way that some people start to feel holiday blues. So like seasonal affective disorder is what it's called technically, but we don't have to necessarily call it all that. So there's that, but also whenever we have major losses, especially the people that we love and care for, and we now have to live with a new normal. So Christmas or any other holidays, Thanksgiving, having them around the table. So those types of situations can also cause holiday blues. Or it could also have to do with your values. Like if you're not someone who spends, you know, tons of money or wants to spend tons of money on buying gifts, if you don't really believe in that, but there's a strong expectation that you feel to do that, that means there's a misalignment happening within, and that can also cause holiday. So there are many things that can cause it. So from, like I said, the weather to major losses, grief and loss, and processing, to social pressure, for example. So just to give you like a quick snapshot of what holiday blues can be.
Wow. You know, that's interesting because a lot of things become cliche. We just say them, but you just framed it in a whole different way for me to see that it's real. It's not just a cliche. It's something that happens from a lot of different things. Does anybody have any feedback on what they think holiday blues is?
You know, another cause of holiday blues or something that triggers it is people just not being where they want to be in life currently when the holiday season comes around. And so that brings up a lot of negative thoughts and I wish this and I wish that. And some people really just end up feeling really, really depressed and they look at where they are in life instead of and they're not where they want to be.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. I was gonna say personally, like I noticed myself this year, like when it started getting dark and everything, like I was like, I feel a little sad. And I was just like having a mental health background, like I understood what it was, but it didn't really stop it from happening. So it's just kind of interesting how sometimes, even though like you have like that knowledge and that awareness, it can still be hard and you can still have challenges with your own mental health. So yeah, I think it's really great that we're having this conversation. So I was like, ooh, I was like, what is that? Like, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Exactly. You know,
And Bobby, do you have feedback on that?
I also think it's unrealistic expectations with the holiday. We're still in this pandemic, and there's a lot of losses, financial losses, loved ones. Someone mentioned loved ones, and then we have this seasonal change. I'm on the East Coast in Tennessee, and for me, it gets darker like at 4 o'clock. And what Victoria said, it's that darkness. Sometimes you feel lonely, and the day is not as long as it used to be. I just really think it's a coupling effect along with this pandemic. Folks have lost loved ones, and here we're in a holiday, and things have changed. So I think that could be part of the triggers.
Wow. And that's interesting to use that word triggers, because that's something I think is huge with mental health in general. And the thing is, you know, that's that word, whoa, mental health. But you know what? When we wake up, it's all, you know, it takes our brain to do that. And then, so it's all involved, you know, and it's just the name that gives stigma, but to me, it's something it's who we are, it's how we tick. So it's important. Does anybody think that with COVID, that of course, I mean, this is kind of a silly question, but it affected so many things. Like you said, finances, it affected health, loss, and all of those things. Let's talk about, because there's one thing with saying an issue, but what is something that we can do to give ourselves some sense of direction, or to start to cope with some of this holiday blues? Let's see. How about Char?
You know, I think the first thing is we really have to be honest with ourselves and where we are and how we feel. I think it really starts with that. And then once you're honest with yourself and really assess yourself and where you are, with depression, people tend to isolate themselves. And so when you are a person that is, I guess I should say, an introvert, isolation comes a little bit more natural than people that are extroverts. So making yourself get out of your environment and be active. You know, if you're depressed and you're feeling down and you're feeling bad and you're laying in the bed every day, that's not helpful for you, right? You have to interrupt that routine. And then also knowing what your limits are. If I'm an introvert and it doesn't inspire me to go someplace where there's a lot of people, but I know I need to be social, then finding some smaller venue, a smaller group of people that you enjoy to have some type of human contact at some point. We're human, we're social beings. Whether we're introverts or not, we're still social beings. So
Yeah.
we have to interact with people. And even if it's just doing something, good for someone, just doing something social outside of your current environment, but doing it within your limits.
That's so true. And I would like to remind our audience that they can feel free to submit comments in the chat, as well as can we go ahead and show the text number so people can also be aware that they can send in a text and we can get their questions that way as well too. Um, the one thing I wanted to know is it necessary when a person is experiencing holiday blues to encourage them to be festive and celebrate and to move past that spot? Is that something that a person should try to do with somebody that's experiencing holiday blues? Uh, Bobby?
I don't think you should force that. That would probably exacerbate what they're already going through. I think you should be able to tell them to, again, it's that expectation. Maybe you change the tradition. Maybe you change activities. But forcing them, no. Walk them through what they're going through. Yes, encourage them, but I wouldn't force them to celebrate a holiday if they're already battling it.
Gotcha. Okay. What do you guys think? Anybody else want to chime in on that?
I mean, I guess personally. Oh, go ahead, Dr. Wilshire.
No, you go. You haven't talked yet. Go ahead.
Okay. I was just gonna say, just kind of like as like with everything, I feel like it's kind of like better to ask the person kind of what they need from you. Because sometimes a person really just needs to be to themselves and they need to have a space where they can go through those emotions and just kind of feel all those feelings and not feel guilty about it. Because I think a lot of times you not only feel bad because you already feel bad, but now you feel bad because all these people have these expectations of you and you're not able to fulfill them. So now it's like that compounded on everything else you're already dealing with. So I think it's important to kind of like take yourself out of it and see like what that person needs, and it's like, maybe there is a point where you're like, maybe I can like see if they want to do something, but you can't really force anybody to do anything. So I totally agree with that.
And so I was gonna add as well, because what I'm hearing from earlier too, what Bobby was saying that Bobby was saying that you don't want to invalidate, because I think that's like what I took from what Bobby was saying, is that you can invalidate someone's feelings by sort of ignoring them. And so definitely wanting to validate that it doesn't have to always be, we don't have to all feel the same. With that said, I am also thinking, and also to consider not taking it personally, because I think when someone's even beyond the holidays and someone's not at your level and energy level, we could take it personally and it has literally nothing to do with us. And so something I always encourage, people I'm working with, and even for myself, like, okay, don't take it personally, which can be really hard because you want to love people, you want to support, you just want everything to be great. And sometimes it can't all be the same. So just that reminder.
So from what I'm hearing is, let me make sure I understand what you guys are saying, is that it's okay to let everybody kind of be their own barometer with where they need to be and how they're expressing themselves, how they're showing up during the holidays, and not to coerce them to be where you're at. So from a mental health perspective, then is that like a healing process where you have to allow people to heal the way they need to heal? Would that be part of it, Victoria?
I would say, yeah, because it's, if you're trying to like force them, like, it's one thing to just like ask somebody and like, there are these things like, I know you're down, but like, don't worry about, because I think also sometimes people worry as well. Like, if I go out, like, I'm not in the right mind space, and like, I don't want to like bring other people down, but it's just like letting them know, like, it's okay to come as you are and to like not be 100% okay. Like, you can still come, because I think that's another thing as well. But yeah, just to kind of go back to that, I think you just have to allow people to work through things, and it's going to be different for everybody. You know, you might have one friend that you can kind of just give like a gentle nudge and then like their game, and it's okay. And that's actually fine for them. And then another friend that kind of just wants to be in their spot, and like you calling them and just checking in on them and letting them know that you're thinking of them is more than enough, you know, because like you can't force somebody to not feel bad, you know, because I think a lot of us feel like there's a perfect phrase we can say or something we can do to like change someone else's situation. And it's like, that's not true. You know, people are going to get better when it's time for them to get better.
Gotcha. That's good information. That's really good information. And are there like red flags or signs where we should watch, like we're saying, you know, let people do it on their own, let them heal, but are there things that we need to watch for that maybe we should interact or engage? Dr. Wilshire?
Definitely. So there's definitely that. And so generally, if someone's acting very different, right? Like if you see someone being very different than they usually are, you may want to pay attention a little bit more. Again, I can't help but go back to not taking it personally, because taking it personally can cause the ego to come in and say, oh, why didn't they text me back? And it's like, no, this person could literally be struggling so bad that they can't get the text message out. So if it's unusual and you know this person, then maybe check in, go see them, send someone to see them. Of course, if someone I shouldn't say of course, if someone's like selling off all their things unexpectedly, that's a really big sign. If you're like, you know, they love that couch and they're trying to get rid of it, you know, so maybe they're just trying to freshen up their space, but you won't really know unless you have a conversation with them. And so those are maybe some of those signs. If you live with a person, it may look one way versus if you don't live with them. But I'm sure other panelists may have some great input into other signs.
You know, one of the things is when you have a person that, you know, acknowledging your friends, being there for your friends or your loved one, and being there to listen if they want to talk, right? And one of the things that, you know, when you love someone, you have a great bond and friendship with someone, sometimes it's hard to listen. It's hard to listen without trying to fix it, right? Tell them what they should do, or, you know, just do this. But a lot of times people just want to be heard, and they want someone to listen. They're not asking you to fix things. You know, I mean, there's power in just listening, and there's power in just talking. And so we have to be mindful and respectful of that with folks. You know, as far as triggers, you know, people having conversations where you feel like they're saying goodbye, you know, that's kind of difficult to distinguish within, you know, in the holiday season. But that's where listening really carefully, you know, comes in. I think we already mentioned changing in their behavior. You know, if their behavior's changing, if they're a true extrovert, and all of a sudden, you know, they're locked in their house and they don't come out, they're not answering their phone. Well, they probably need somebody to check them in.
That's really good. Anybody else?
I'm gonna add, if no one else, something I'll add too. Just, you know, you just reminded me there, Shara, that because seeking the introvert versus the extrovert, absolutely, there's opposites, but either one could also take up more drinking or drug use. So if the introvert is acting erratic, right, and so they may be taking some substance to try to ease the pain that they're feeling. So yeah, definitely looking at major changes, but definitely an increase in risk taking as well, whether it's drinking and driving and stuff like that. So being able to pay attention and not necessarily just jump on the party bus with them when they're actually like crashing and burning.
Yeah.
I'm just going to comment on Dr. Wilshire. That's good advice. Also, people like to self-medicate. Just to piggyback on what you said, they self-medicate to heal. Another warning sign is to You probably already said this. People can be withdrawn and not showing up to things. So that's another warning sign. Just like everyone said, you have to pay attention to the people around their behaviors. So that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah. And then I guess too, the only other thing I kind of thought of was outside of behaviors is like their language and like the way that they're speaking, like the words that they're using, you know, because I feel like a lot of people have said something like, I hate it here. I don't want to be here. And it's like a lot of times it's just like, it's not actually as serious as it sounds, but just like listening to other things and like if you know the person, just like being in tune and like not necessarily just like laughing at everything, you know, like what does the person's face look like when they're saying these things, you know, and like you just kind of have to take in the whole individual and just try and pay attention. But then it's like also like a lot of times I think we all have our own stuff going on too, to where it can be easy to miss some of these things, you know, and then I think people beat themselves up for that, but it's also just like we're human, you know, so it's like you do your best, but like that's kind of really all you can do.
And even people that we may know have diagnosed mental illnesses, right? During the holidays, it's real easy for them to get off track of their routine, their medication. So even that person that's the life of the party, most times maybe the person that has bipolar, right? And so maybe they're too much the life of the party. You start seeing that behavior continue to escalate, escalate, escalate. So I think the doctor mentioned not jumping on the bus to crash and burn with them. And so looking at that behavior and making sure that it doesn't go too far the opposite way. So you can see depression as being, closed up and quiet and reserved, but you can also see the opposite.
And and it seems like a lot of our conversation we're looking outward, you know, at other people, how to allow them to heal and cope, and warning signs, stay in touch. So let's flip that a little bit. Let's talk about, when it comes to an individual, to yourself, you know, when I guess can turn to depression. And how do you know that's what you're experiencing if it is depression? Um, Dr. Wilshire, can you help with that question there? How do we know that it's possibly depression that we're experiencing?
Sure. So one of the signs that you'll notice, so you can, looking at yourself more holistically, and I think that's also just even our previous answer, when we look through our lens, our life lens holistically, then we start to see some of the signs. So for example, if we are suddenly very tired, not because we stayed up all night or we worked out, but just our energy level internally is just, it's dragging along. Like you feel like you're dragging, for example. So there's that, your thoughts, your inner dialogue. If your inner dialogue is just low vibrations, I mean, then when its baseline is usually a little bit more up here, then that might be a sign. Also, if you're someone who is incredibly anxious beyond effectiveness, because anxiety is very effective, right? Anxiety makes us on time to this panel, right? Anxiety makes us get our assignments done. But if we're so anxious that we miss the boat half the times, or we're missing things, and then in turn, like if I miss something that I wanted to be a part of because of my anxiety, I might turn around and then be depressed. So usually anxiety and depression also go hand in hand. So usually someone who says I'm very anxious, we can probably not say assume, but guess that depression is going to come and follow as a result of our thoughts. Maybe we're missing things. Memories. Memory is impacted by depression. Sleep and eating habits are affected. So it's really about looking at everything, from the external all the way to the internal and physiologically, and saying, I think something's going on. It might be depression. If we want to label it depression, we don't have to, but yeah.
Okay. Anybody else want to chime in on that?
I feel like that was like a really great description of it. And I feel like something that sometimes makes it hard to like pinpoint that it is depression is because a lot of people want to be like, but I'm not depressed, automatically like just like talking to a friend and they're like, oh, I'm not feeling like going out, like I want to kind of just stay in and all of these things. And like, but I'm not depressed, don't worry, and so it's just like kind of not being able to say that might be what's happening to you is also kind of like something that might make all the difference in you being able to like shift yourself in the other direction. If you can actually just, like we were saying earlier, be honest with yourself and be like, I'm not myself right now. Like I am different, and it's okay for things to cause a shift within yourself. But if you can't see it because you're just so worried about either what other people are going to think, or even you're just like, no, that can't be me, then like you might end up stuck there longer than you had to be. So that's all I had to say off of what you said.
Anybody else want to add to that?
I just wanted to chime in. Now, because I wrote the film, The Pink Canopy, and it's my mom's life story, she battled with depression. So my brothers and I, even my children, we do a self-check because it's a possibility it may run in the family. So we just do a self-check, mental health, checking on everybody, checking on yourself. So with that, and because it runs in my family, we do this mental health self-check. So that helps us.
I just want to say that's really beautiful. I'm so glad that you're saying that as a family. Like I actually have goosebumps right now. I was thinking about how amazing that is and what a major shift that is, because usually, especially, years ago, going to therapy was a secret, and a secret that could actually sometimes cause more harm, because when you can share healing together, especially when everyone was affected, right? Everyone gets impacted by what's happening within a family or within a circle. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. It's just amazes me to hear that as a family, to do these check-ins and maybe even hold each other accountable for that growth.
And that was the word I was looking for, accountability. It can be sometimes we want to face it. That's like Victoria said, oh, I'm not depressed. I'm not depressed. But if you've got somebody that knows you, like, you might want to think that. So, yeah.
And that is just so awesome, within the family, you have to give people permission, to be honest about their mental health. There's still such a stigma about mental health, especially in the African American community. And depression, there's situational depression, right? I mean, within a month's time, most people can say, well, this many days I felt just fine, but, for this week, I didn't feel so good. Whether it was, you have a lot of pressure, a lot of things you have to get done and you feel like you can't, get them all done, to where things happen in life that make you feel a certain way. It could be losing a job, losing a friend, just comments that people have made that day. So it's just a lot of things that can cause a person to feel depressed. And it may not be major depression or severe depression, but nevertheless, it did not make you feel good. So being able to address that and permission to work through it that day.
And I'm gonna jump out on a limb really quick, just to piggyback off what you just said, is that something to really consider is that if you are living and breathing and you are here, Sonia, you mentioned it earlier that everyone has mental health. That's just it exists. So most people, I would say just about every living person is going to experience low energy. And some, like you're saying, Charlotte, it may not be major depression where we have to get you to a hospital, but even plants are depressed. I mean, I have plants right now that need to be watered, and they are sad right now, a little sad.
I can relate.
We leave the dog at home too long, and the dog is crying all day, waiting for, mama, papa to come home. So maybe it's a little scary to use these words, but at the end of the day, it's part of the human experience. Just sort of normalizing that.
Yeah. And honestly, I found too, like, not that you have to label yourself because we definitely do not encourage that, but kind of just knowing that there are these words that kind of normalize these things happening is kind of empowering, you know, because it's like, it's not like kind of like what Dr. Wilshire was saying, it's not just happening to you, you know, like a lot of people are going to experience this. So like there's literally like a clinical term that says to some degree, like if this ends up being where you are, this is what it's called. So you can experience symptoms of that without it being like full blown, like you said, like major depression. But just kind of knowing, like for me, it was like anxiety. I was like, once I noticed I had anxiety, I was like, so that's what that is. Why my mind is always going like 1,000 miles a minute, and it's hard for me to like not do like think too much in certain situations. And as soon as I knew that, I was like, okay, so like whenever that happens, like I can kind of pick up on it. So like now, not only am I not alone, but there's something I can identify those feelings with. So then whenever they come up and I'm having to work through them, like I know what it is. Like when you can pinpoint something, I think it just kind of makes it easier. So yeah, I would say it's like the same with depression.
Hi, Sonia.
No,
Sonia.
go ahead.
I've
Yes.
got a couple of comments on Facebook and one
awesome.
question. So I wanted to go
So
ahead
let's go
and
for
inject
it.
it
Yes,
right quick
please.
here. One statement from Anita, which I thought was pretty interesting because I also deal with the same thing. She said, it's hard not living near family, which I do live near family, but she said that she feels in the middle being a widower with single and married friends.
Hmm.
And then the other question is from Mr. Farrell Phelps. And he says, what about prevention and having things in place prior to the holiday season?
That's good. So, should we talk about that? What are things that we could put in place to prepare us to know that every time this time of year, something, things affect us? Are there tools, guys, that we could, or things that we could do, meditate, or what would you guys recommend?
If no one else wants to start first, I guess I would just say we are tools. Like the women in this room are walking tools, you know, like we're in the field of therapy and we're here for exactly that, you know, because I think a lot of people think they have to wait for something just extremely terrible to happen to them for them to get into therapy. But therapy can be for maintenance. Therapy can be like, I want to improve the way I think about things. I want to change the way that I interact with other people, the way I think about myself. It's such a tool that literally can do exactly that, you know, like keep you like we have clients that we're going to be seeing before the holidays just to like check in with them, make sure that they're good, as good as they can be, you know, and just like hope that we can like get them in a good enough space to like go through the holidays, you know, and then we'll check right back in with them as soon as the new year comes. So yeah, I think therapy is just such an awesome tool that like I would love to see more Black people in the Black community like use because it's changed my life, honestly.
Wow.
I love that. Love that. I love the tool analogy and the visual, you know, that idea of like wearing a tool, like, you know, having a toolbox or a belt. And it's like, no one wants to just have a hammer in their toolkit. Like, what are you going to do when you need to like tighten something? You know, it's not going to work. So really thinking about us as just one resource, one of the tools that can get you to help support you in getting to where you want to be. It's a relationship. But as far as other ways to consider this is that, you know, prevention isn't always possible, like 100% possible. It's kind of like flossing and brushing your teeth. Doesn't mean you'll never get a cavity because something else could be going on inside that we don't know about. So thinking a bit more of like, how can you prepare yourself? And someone mentioned earlier, I believe, about coming up with new traditions. And so I think that there's that. If it's about not wanting to celebrate a specific holiday, or because you're having to grieve the loss of someone, then I mean, it's also going to take some time. So I don't know about necessarily prevention per se, but being honest and gearing up for this time of year and experimenting with how you do that.
Would you guys say that focusing on like volunteering and focusing on other people would that help?
I think that's helpful, but I think that we want to make sure that we are also focused on ourselves and don't use that to avoid, dealing with ourselves and our issues. I really like the idea of a tradition, giving yourself permission for the holiday to be how you want it, how you want it to be. If you decide you want to eat Chinese food this holiday season because that's what you want to do, then make that choice, and it should be okay. For that person and for whoever else is surrounding them, or a part of their lives. And then I can't stress enough finding someone, if it's not a therapist, it's someone that you trust, that you can trust to talk to. I think that's so important. Someone that's not going to, judge you or try to fix you. It's just someone that will be there to listen to you. I don't know about you guys, but I have a lot of conversations with myself sometimes. Just because thinking it in your mind and hearing it out of your mouth is two different things.
I'm always talking to myself. Always.
Same.
So
I have this is for something light to ask, but they say it's okay to have self-talk and talk to yourself as long as you don't answer back. Is that true?
I feel like I've answered back sometimes, so we might have to worry about me.
Nobody
Full on
else is
conversation.
listening. Nobody else is listening, so I talk and I answer.
We gotta keep this conversation going. We gotta work through this.
Right. I have a board meeting. Me, myself, and I.
As long as we feel like we're still in reality and have a strong grasp firm on reality, then we're okay.
And we're not trying to hurt anybody, right? The talk isn't like, let me gear up and do this. No, it's more like, okay, Michelle, how are you going to get through? Like, you got to be your own cheerleader sometimes, because if we rely on external sources, anything outside of you, you cannot fully count on being 100% there. Because, Victoria, I might call you up and you may have a bad day. How can I rely on you to hold me up now? But if I'm like, if I pull out the cheerleader, like, okay, cheerleader Michelle, let's go. Like, great. She is ready to be my big fan. I don't have to rely on anybody else. So it's so important to talk to yourself.
Self-talk, that's what I thought, because it has such a negative. People go, if you talk to yourself, you're crazy. I go, well, I must, and just to use that word is like, there's no such thing. It's just you're experiencing life, and sometimes it's like, really, Sonia?
Yeah, and I think that's such a great point too. Like, just like you said, like in dealing with things like internally, because I think even like with therapy, it's like we can't always be there, so like I think it's like a great resource, but also like taking the tools that you learn in therapy and then like using them in your life to where when the therapist isn't around, you're still able to like work through those things on your own. So yeah, like it kind of just already, even outside of therapy, just seeing different things that work and allowing yourself to try different things. Like if you're interested in meditation, see what meditation could do for you. If you're interested in seeing what working out will do for you, like just allow yourself to try different things. Because you never know what will be good for your mental health, honestly.
I will say though that I have had a few clients over the years that said, you were right there in my head. I heard your voice, like, do it. I thought that was really funny. A couple of times that's happened. I was, we were able to use humor, and I wanted to say that as well. Like, we are using humor right now, and so when you are talking to yourself, like, sometimes humor is medicine, and so if you can make something funny, go for it.
And I think everybody should have a self-help like routine that they do. Things that make that. I mean, for me, a hot cup of tea with some peppermint and lemon in it, cinnamon sticks, just does wonders for me. That funny movie on TV when you're just like, you're sad, but you need something to make you laugh, and that funny movie that you have in your closet that you pull out when you need it. People have to identify those things for themselves.
I have a
That's great.
question.
Let's share ours. Okay,
I,
Todd, that was some good stuff right there. I want everybody to share theirs.
I,
What is that thing? Bobby, what's that thing for you?
Sonia, can I ask
What do
a
you do?
question before you guys move
Yes.
into that? Because what
Yes.
I've found is that a lot of people are hyper focused on the news, and they're
Mm.
constantly watching the news, and they're constantly seeing the bad stuff
Yeah.
that's going on in the world. And so, for people to change their focus and just kind of like you said, Shara, as far as looking at something that's funny. I watch a lot of funny things because the world is just really sad right now. What do you say to people who are always very focused on the worldly issues and the world problems, especially with COVID and seeing things that people are sick and dying and all those types of things? And I
Yeah.
think it's brought a lot of people down into a depression just looking at the things that have happened over the last year.
I
Yeah.
don't think people really understand the connection with negative thoughts and negative environments and your mental health. I don't think people really understand that. If you're taking in negative, you're seeing negative, you're taking in negative, you're speaking negative, how are you going to feel?
I know I worked in television news for some years, and the saying is, with anything that bleeds, any story that bleeds, leads, that leads to that broadcast for that first 10 minutes. So right there, if it's tragedy, if it's murder, it's starting out with the newscast that way. And that's how they get their ratings. So my advice is disconnect and purposely find something like, excuse me, Charge says she finds something on TV that she laughs at.
Mhm.
So you have to purposely disconnect from that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
And
And so,
oh, sorry, I'm gonna
no,
interrupt
go ahead,
someone.
Dr. Rashad. Go ahead,
And
please.
I'm gonna say this too. I mean, there is so much wrong with the world. There's so many things that are tragic and sad. Something to remind ourselves though, that some people are dying, aren't doing well in their physical body. But we probably all may know someone or a story of someone who was still finding humor, still laughing, still like making people laugh to the end. And so just that reminder that it is some things aren't a choice and some things are. And so our choice to say, you know what, I need to give myself a bit of a break. I care about this thing so much, but I also need to care about my health and what it's doing to me. And so, but I just wanted to share that like I mean, I've heard stories of people who are at their very end and they're smiling, And so, yeah, so a little bit of a reminder.
That's really
love
good.
that.
And one of the things we were just talking about, because I hear people say, well, if you don't watch the news, you're not going to know what's going on. Every corner, every place you look, you can't help but hear something. And then how much of it is authentic? How much of it is real? How much is it true? So I think where news used to be reported and let you form your own opinion, that has changed. So I think you can be more assertive and choose how you get your news, and then protect yourself the way you need to, instead of just, because they say you have to protect your ear gates, your eye gates, and all of that, because it does. You go to sleep thinking about some of those things. And I think about our children today, how they're impacted with all this negativity, and, they're our future. They have to continue to be able to look forward and look out and look up. And so us as, the adults and older generation, I think we have to do that for ourselves as well too. So we can stay encouraged, inspired, keep dreaming, keep, achieving and reaching, instead of thinking that everything's doomsday. The world, every day we wake up is a blessing. And I believe you have the power at least to try to make a choice on what kind of day you would like to have. And I choose joy. Happiness is temperamental. And that's what I've learned in my life's journey. And I know everybody is different. but joy is something that you decide. And so for me, that's where I've gained my internal power over the years, is to understand that that is very valuable. And I fight not to give that away on a daily basis. So what do you guys think about the difference when people talk about joy and happiness? Bobby?
Well, I'm just going to piggyback what you said. Happiness, happy is short for happenstance. So it's just it's going to pass. But that joy can be like a river everlasting. I'm sorry, scripture based. But yeah. So, and then there's also a scripture that says laughter does good like a medicine. So there's a great truth in laughter and finding joy in things. For me, I like to, like Shari said, I like to find things that make me laugh. I like to make people laugh. I like joy in things. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. We hear you loud and clear. That's awesome. Anybody else have anything you want to chime in on that? What is that for you guys? What do you guys do? Y'all, I don't want y'all to get out of that little question we asked before. What is that thing that you do that brings you joy or happiness, or just puts you in another place when you're going through maybe some times that are not that happy? I want to hear everybody's thing. What do y'all do? Dr. Wisher, what do you do?
So I was gonna say, currently, what makes me, or who actually makes me laugh, is my daughter. She's 18 months, so I'm a first-time mom. Yeah, and I did not know that I could laugh so much with a child. And she's not trying to make me laugh. She's just being herself, and I'm sometimes in tears watching her, like, figuring out her life in front of me. And then sometimes she's a jokester. Like, she's a straight up jokester. She will trick you and do all the things, you know how kids are. But she makes me laugh, brings a lot of joy naturally. I love to eat. I love interesting foods. I want to try different things. I used to travel a lot before the pandemic. And I like to play video games. Like, a lot of people don't know that about me, but I just want to, like, turn up my Switch, my Nintendo Switch, and just start fighting Marios and different things, just having a good time and, like, escaping all the of the world a little bit.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And Chara, how about you?
Wow.
What you do?
I think I'm a natural introvert. I've had to realize, that I need human interaction, right? So I've had to understand that and really put myself in a place where I really truly enjoy people and being present with people when you're around them. But I'm also a true comfort queen. I like the comfy pajamas. I like to create my environment with my candles, my music. I love music. I can't sing, y'all, but I think I can sing, but I really can't sing. So I love to just turn it up and sing right along with it at the top of my lungs. And that just that makes me happy, That makes me happy. Yes. And of course my girls, they're hilarious most of the time. And so, kids they're always doing something silly, that's making me laugh. But creating my whole little environment, I like to do that.
That's awesome. Miss Victoria, how about you?
I would say, like, I'm still finding mine because I feel like it changes just in terms of, like, I guess what I'm going through. But I would say right now, just being around loved ones, talking to them, or sometimes just, like, not dumping everything I have on them, but just kind of word vomiting everything that's going through my head so that it doesn't have to just stay inside of me. But music, same. Dancing, love it. Eating, always. Ice cream is a must. So yeah, I would say a lot of similar things, just trying to get it anywhere I can, honestly, truly.
Absolutely. That's good stuff. And I don't have to tell you guys mine, but anyway, I'll skate around the kitchen. I love skating, so I skate. I'll put my skates on and my old school music, and I will skate around the kitchen. That's what I do. And just like I said, music, there's something about music, but you do have to be careful with music because music will sometimes put you in places you don't need to go at that time.
Right.
And is that true, or does that happen for anybody else? That music is one of those things that can take you to some positive places, but it can take you to some negative places. What do you guys
Yeah,
feel? Is that true?
Like straight bawling. Yeah, absolutely. Like to a rough time in that song. Or I remember like when Aaliyah died so long ago, every now and again her song comes on, like, oh, I can't do it, Aaliyah, turn it off. So
I love Aaliyah too. I feel that. Personally, I have like crying songs that I specifically turn on to cry. So I feel like sometimes it can be a good thing to like let those emotions out, and sometimes music helps you do it, you know, and it just kind of like sets the mood.
Wow.
And let it be like raining in the background. Like, I'm gonna go crying. And then I'm gonna go on about my day.
I completely agree.
Normalize crying.
Exactly. I have songs that I love to cry to. You know, I mean, it's natural. I mean, it's something that you know people need to do every now and then. I have this.
I never thought about that.
Really? Yeah, you gotta cry sometimes. I mean, you watch.
If I do that, why fast forward to another song?
To me, I say it's the same as folks that watch Hallmark all day, which I do watch Hallmark too. You know, so you watch that for a particular reason, right? So then you cry. I have this my Amazon Alexa, and you can set different songs. So if they play a song that doesn't fit into your whatever, you can just tell her to skip it. And go to the next one. So
yeah, when she listens to you.
Well, I think we have a good relationship.
That's a whole nother conversation and show. Well, before we're getting close to the end of the show, but I would like to know if anybody has any resources that they would like to share, any websites or any information. We can put them in the comments as well, but so don't worry about if you say what it is, we'll make sure that we type it in the comments and they can go to it later. Because I think it's very important that we give people tools. So does anybody have any resources they'd like to share?
There's
go ahead. Go ahead, Bobby.
I'm sorry.
Greater National Alliance of Mental Illness, NAMI Houston, Greater NAMI Houston. That's a good resources because they have classes on mental health, how to spot the signs, and they're free resource classes. NAMI, N-A, National Alliance on Mental Illness. NAMI.
Bobby, can you type that in the chat for us at the end of the comment area at the end of the show?
Yes.
Thank you. And Char?
A couple other resources, Mental Health of America. They have a website full of resources, and especially resources geared towards all minority groups. And I'll put that in the chat, but it's MHA and then national.org. And so they have a lot of resources. You also have the Teen Crisis Hotline, because I think, parents, adults deal with depression, but so do our children and our teens. And so that crisis hotline is 1-800-989-6884. That's the Teen Crisis Hotline, 1-800-989-6884. And then we have the Depression Hotline. That is 1-800-662-HELP. That's the Depression Hotline. It's 1-800-662-HELP. And these are 24-hour hotlines. And then we also have the National Suicide Prevention Line. And that is 1-800-273-8255. And that's 1-800-273-8255. And I'll put all of that in the chat as well.
Thank you so much. Dr. Wishart, do you have would you like to share any resources?
I do have one that I'll share. If you are thinking about getting ready for therapy, you're considering it, early stage of change, you start browsing. So therapyforblackgirls.com is a great website. It's not just for females, it is for everyone. And there are therapists. I mean, statistically, most therapists these days are female, but there are male therapists on there as well. And also, her podcast and her blog is also very helpful. It's a great resource. So, therapyforblackgirls.com. And I can put that in the chat if I can find the chat.
Wonderful. And then Victoria, is there a resource you would like to share?
Yeah, so I was definitely going to say Therapy for Black Girls as well. That's how I found Dr. Wilshire, and also how I found my personal therapist. So totally recommend. But then also, personally, I use the Calm app. I don't know if anybody has heard of that, but it's basically like an app, and it has different tools on it. So like some are like sounds for meditation, some are sounds for sleeping. And I've just found that it's been like pretty helpful in terms of like sleepless nights that I've had. Like I'll turn on something and then I'll be out. And then also the meditations, like they kind of have like guided meditations or at least music to listen to while you're meditating. They have sleep stories. So I would say I check the Calm app. It's supposed to help with like stress, anxiety, all of that good stuff. So
wonderful. Well, before it's been a great show, and this is something that we can definitely talk about. But I want to first say thank you guys so much for joining me on this, and I pray you guys will have a marvelous holiday season. And I plan to use as many of the tools as possible, and to continue to have self-talk, especially now that I know it's okay. But before we end, I would like each one of you to say how we can find you and get more information about your platform and what you do. Bobby, can you please let us know how we can find you?
Absolutely. I'm on Instagram, The Pink Canopy, Facebook, also The Pink Canopy, and then Bobby Wagner.
Awesome. Thank you. And Dr. Wisher, how do we find you in your practice?
So you can look for my full name. It's MICHELLEWIL, T as in Tom, SHIRE, and then the letters P as in Paul, S as in Sam, Y as in yellow, D as in dog.com. So MichelleWilshireSociety.com. That's the URL I'm using right now. I'm going to get a better, easier URL eventually, I promise.
Awesome. And then we'll put this all in the chat as well too. Victoria, how do we find you?
So I would say for me, the same place you find Dr. Wilshire is where you find me if you're looking for services and you're located in Florida. And then outside of that, you can find me on Instagram. It's acoustic appetite, acoustic_appetite, like you eat and like you play the guitar. And yes.
And Char, how do we find you?
You can find me on Facebook under my full name, Chara Bowie. You can also, I do have a chat feature on my website, which is survivorbook08.com. So you can find me there, and you can always send me an email to powerfilling20@yahoo.com.
Awesome. And so let's all coin something new. Let's wish everyone a happy and healthy holiday. How about that? Does that sound good?
Sounds great.
So thank you, ladies, so much. And thank everybody. Thank you for your feedback, your questions, for tuning in. And just keep in touch with family members and friends. Call them so you can hear what they sound like, not just text them, because you can't always hear how people feel in the word. So love you guys. Thank you again for joining another Your Voice Talk Show. And we'll see you next time on the next one. Thank you, ladies. Have a happy, healthy holiday.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.